My name's Rose Carter. I'm 26 years old, and for most of my life, I've been the kind of girl people don't notice in a room until I make a mistake. Then suddenly, everyone's eyes snap to me, waiting, smirking, ready to watch me stumble. I grew up in a small suburban town where reputation meant everything. You know, the kind of place: neat lawns, nosy neighbors, and the unspoken rule that kids should grow up to be exactly what their parents imagine. My dad, Colonel Daniel Carter, wasn't just any father. He was a decorated military man, the kind people saluted in the street. At home, though, he wore his medals like weapons, each one proof that no matter what I did, I'd never measure up. I was the youngest of three. My brother, Jacob, was the golden child, strong, athletic, captain of his high school football team, destined, according to Dad, for greatness. My sister, Lily, was the elegant one, straight-A student, graceful, the kind of girl who never wrinkled her dress or spoke out of turn. And then there was me, Rose, the clumsy, overly emotional daughter, the one who couldn't sit straight at the dinner table without being corrected, who cried too easily, who daydreamed when I should have been serious. She can't even follow basic instructions. My dad would grumble when I forgot to fold my uniform from school properly or when I fumbled a dish while setting the table. "Don't be so hard on her," Mom would sometimes say softly, but her voice never carried weight in our house. My father's word was law. The truth? I wasn't useless. I was curious. I loved books, especially stories of explorers, soldiers, and leaders who overcame impossible odds. I'd sneak them under my blanket with a flashlight, my heart racing as I imagined myself standing tall in a uniform, commanding respect. But in daylight, that dream felt laughable. Every time I hinted at wanting to do something bold, something outside the quiet box they shoved me into, my dad would chuckle with that dismissive, sharp laugh that cut deeper than yelling. "Rose, you'd get lost on a parade ground. You're not built for discipline, sweetheart. Leave that to people like me and Jacob." He said it so often it sank into me, like wet cement hardening around my ribs. Still, there were cracks in his narrative. I remember one afternoon in high school, I must have been about 16, when we had a physical endurance test in gym. Most of the girls groaned, but I threw myself into it. Running laps, push-ups, climbing ropes. I wasn't perfect, but I was determined. When I collapsed at the end, sweat pouring down my forehead, my gym teacher clapped me on the shoulder. "You've got grit, Carter. More than half the boys in your class. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." It was one of the first times someone said something like that to me, and it stuck, because it was proof I wasn't what my dad kept labeling me. But grit doesn't always matter when you live under constant scrutiny. Dinner conversations were like interrogations. "Jacob scored 2 goals today. Lily aced her calculus test. Rose, what did you do? Daydream again?" Dad's smirk always drew laughter from Jacob. Lily never joined in, but she never defended me either. And I would sit there, cheeks burning, stabbing at my mashed potatoes while trying not to cry, because showing emotion was just one more weakness to add to my list. By the time I graduated high school, I had learned how to make myself small. I'd sit in the back of classrooms, avoid drawing attention, avoid asking for help, but deep down, I carried a stubborn ember of defiance. I wanted to prove, maybe not to the world, but at least to myself, that I wasn't just the family's afterthought. College wasn't in the cards. My parents didn't believe in investing much in me when they thought Lily was the future lawyer and Jacob the future officer. I worked part-time jobs, saving what I could, while secretly looking into military academies. It felt crazy, almost laughable. Me, in the military? The same daughter who couldn't even load the dishwasher correctly, according to Dad. But late at night, when the house was quiet, I'd practice push-ups on the cold floor of my room, sit-ups until my stomach burned, running laps around the block when no one was watching. It wasn't about strength, it was about discipline, about proving to myself that I could be more than the failure my father saw. Still, it was lonely. My mom tried to be kind, but she was timid, always caught between defending me and keeping peace with Dad. Jacob basked in Dad's approval, too wrapped up in his own glory to notice me. Lily, she was complicated. Sometimes, I'd catch her watching me with a mix of pity and something else, maybe admiration she never voiced. But she never stepped in when Dad tore me down. That silence cut deeper than words. So, who am I? I'm Rose, the girl who everyone underestimated, the one who was told she wasn't built for orders, for discipline, for leadership, the one who was mocked for dreaming of something bigger. And yet, beneath all that, I was the girl who refused to let go of the ember burning in her chest, the girl who, even when everyone laughed, whispered to herself in the dark, "One day, I'll prove them wrong." By the time I was 20, I'd become an expert at invisibility. Living at home was like walking through a minefield, one wrong word, one slip up, and Dad's voice would come down on me like a hammer. My friends noticed it too. "Why don't you ever fight back?" My best friend, Emily, asked me once. We were in her room, sprawled across her bed while she painted her nails a bright, rebellious red I could never dare to wear at home. I laughed bitterly, because in my house, fighting back is just handing him more ammunition. He already thinks I'm a joke. Emily frowned. "You're not a joke. You're tougher than all of them put together. You just don't see it." I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to, but believing meant risking disappointment, and I'd been burned too many times. At home, everything was a comparison game. Dinner was the worst. Dad would lean back in his chair, sipping his drink like a king surveying his court. "Jacob, tell us about the scrimmage." Jacob would grin, flexing slightly as if even his smile had muscles. "Scored 3 goals. Coach says I might get scouted for college ball." Dad's chest would swell with pride. "That's my boy, a Carter through and through." Then his eyes would shift. "And you, Rose? What did you accomplish today? Fold the laundry without tripping over it?" The table would chuckle. Even Lily, though her laughter was softer, more nervous, like she didn't really want to but couldn't resist the current pulling her along. I'd force a smile, stab my fork into my food, and mutter something like, "Yeah, Dad, I managed to keep my shoelaces tied all day. Big achievement." And everyone would move on, except me. For me, those words lodged like splinters I couldn't pull out. Outside the house, people assumed we were perfect. The Carters, the disciplined military father, the star athlete son, the golden daughter, and the quiet youngest. People thought I was just shy, maybe bookish. No one saw how hollow I felt, how badly I wanted to scream whenever Dad's dismissive chuckle rang in my ears. But what really twisted the knife was how much I craved his approval. Even after years of being torn down, a small part of me still thought, if I just try harder, maybe he'll see me. One night, things boiled over. It was Jacob's birthday, a big one, 21. The house was packed with relatives and Dad's colleagues, all there to celebrate the future officer. I was in the kitchen, stacking plates, when I overheard Dad talking to one of his old military buddies. "Jacob's built for the service, Lily. She'll be a professional, lawyer, doctor, whatever she wants. Rose, well, bless her heart, she's more suited for knitting, or maybe babysitting. She'd crumble in the real world." Laughter, male, booming, self-assured. I stood frozen, plates trembling in my hands, my face burned hot, tears pricking at my eyes, but I swallowed them down, because crying, that would just prove him right. Later, when I slipped outside for air, Lily followed me. She hovered awkwardly before saying, "You know he doesn't mean it like that." I turned on her, voice sharp. "Yes, he does. He's been saying it my whole life." She winced but didn't argue. She just whispered, "I think you're stronger than you know." But words without action felt empty. That night, lying in bed, I clenched my fists and whispered into the darkness, "I'll show him. One day, he'll choke on those words." It started with a flyer, just a boring piece of paper pinned to the community board at the grocery store. "Military Training Academy, applications open. Do you have what it takes?" I stared at it so long the cashier had to clear her throat to break me out of my trance. My heart pounded. It felt like the universe was daring me. That night, I filled out the application in secret, my hands shaking as I typed. I didn't tell Emily. I didn't tell Lily, definitely not Dad. It felt like holding a fragile flame, one that could be snuffed out if anyone else breathed on it. Weeks passed, then the envelope arrived, thick, official, with my name printed across it. My chest tightened as I ripped it open. "Congratulations, You have been accepted to the Carter Military Academy training program. For a second, I couldn't breathe. Then I laughed, a wild, disbelieving laugh that startled even me. I'd done it. Someone believed I was capable. But my joy was short-lived. Because telling my family was inevitable. I chose a Sunday dinner, figuring maybe, just maybe, the presence of food would soften the blow. My hands were clammy as I placed the letter on the table. I got accepted, I said, my voice trembling, into the academy training program. The silence that followed was deafening. Jacob snorted first. What? Like as a clerk? Or cafeteria staff? Dad leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. Don't joke, Rose. What are you really talking about? I'm serious, I said, my voice gaining strength. I applied. I was accepted. Training starts next month. For a moment, no one moved. Then Dad burst out laughing. Not a light chuckle, a full, roaring laugh that made the table shake. You? Military training? Rose, you can't even follow household orders without messing up. Do you know what kind of discipline it takes? You'll last a week before crying your way home. My cheeks burned, but I forced myself not to flinch. You don't know what I'm capable of. He slammed his hand on the table. I know exactly what you're capable of. Nothing. Don't embarrass this family by chasing fantasies. The words sliced through me, but instead of breaking me, they hardened something inside. I stood up, my chair scraping loudly. Then watch me embarrass you. And with that, I left the table, my heart racing, tears burning my eyes, but my jaw set like stone. For the first time in my life, I wasn't just whispering one day, I was stepping into it. The first day I arrived at the academy, my legs felt like jelly. Rows of recruits stood ramrod straight, uniforms crisp, eyes forward. I felt like an imposter among them. My heart hammered as the drill sergeant's voice bellowed across the field. You are not special. You are not unique. You are here to be broken down and rebuilt. Half of you will quit before this month is over. My throat tightened, but I locked my knees, refusing to show fear. Those first weeks were brutal. Early mornings that still felt like night, endless push-ups until my arms shook like leaves, running miles with weights strapped to my back. More than once, I thought about quitting. My muscles screamed, my lungs burned, and when I looked around, I saw recruits sharper, faster, stronger. The worst part? My father's voice echoing in my head. You'll last a week before crying your way home. On the 7th day, that prophecy nearly came true. We were on the obstacle course, mud pits, climbing walls, barbed wire. I slipped midway on the rope climb, my hands raw and bleeding, my body dangling. Laughter rippled from a few recruits below. Come on, Carter, someone jeered. Did Daddy sign you up by mistake? My face burned. I wanted to let go, to drop and hide, but then I remembered Emily's words, you're tougher than all of them put together. I gritted my teeth, blood mixing with sweat, and climbed again, slower than the rest, but I made it over. When I collapsed on the other side, gasping, the drill sergeant crouched beside me. His face was hard, but there was a flicker of something in his eyes. You've got grit, Carter, don't waste it. That night, lying on my bunk, I cried quietly into my pillow, not out of weakness, but out of sheer exhaustion. And yet, beneath the tears, I felt something new, pride. Days turned into weeks. Slowly, my body toughened, my push-ups increased, my mile times improved, and while I wasn't the best, I refused to be the one who quit. Letters from home came rarely. When they did, they were mixed. Jacob wrote once, heard you're still at it, didn't think you'd last this long, guess you're tougher than you look. Lily sent short notes of encouragement, proud of you, keep going. But Dad's letter. I'll never forget it. Rose, this isn't a game, quit before you make a fool of yourself and this family. Real soldiers are born for this, you weren't. Don't waste your time chasing shadows. I held the paper so tightly it nearly tore, my chest ached, but I folded it neatly, tucked it under my mattress, and swore to myself, I'll prove him wrong. Even if it kills me. The academy wasn't easy, but what nearly broke me wasn't the training, it was my family. After 3 months, recruits were given a short leave. I went home. nervous but hopeful. I thought maybe they'd see the changes in me. My posture was straighter, my arms stronger, my eyes sharper. I wasn't the timid Rose anymore. When I walked through the door, Mom hugged me first. "You've lost weight," she said, fussing over me. "Are they feeding you enough?" Jacob smirked from the couch. "Look at you. Almost looks like you belong there. Almost." I swallowed the jab, forcing a smile. "It's tough, but I'm making it." Dad emerged from his study, arms crossed. He scanned me from head to toe, his expression unreadable. For a second, I thought maybe, just maybe, he saw me differently. Then he spoke. "Stand straight. You're slouching, and tuck in your shirt. You look sloppy." The tiny flicker of hope in my chest died instantly. Dinner that night was a disaster. Relatives were over, and as always, Dad used the table as his stage. So, Uncle Tom asked, "How's Rose doing at the academy? Must be proud, Dan." Dad chuckled. "Proud? Let's not get ahead of ourselves. She's hanging on by a thread. They'll probably cut her before the year's out." The table erupted in laughter. My fork froze midway to my mouth. My cheeks flamed hot as everyone chuckled at my expense. I glanced at Mom. She looked down at her plate. Lily gave me a pained look but said nothing. Jacob smirked openly. I wanted to scream, to throw my glass across the room, but instead, I put my fork down, folded my napkin, and said quietly, "Excuse me." I walked upstairs, shut the door to my childhood room, and sat on the bed, shaking. My throat burned, my eyes blurred, but more than sadness, I felt anger, boiling, white-hot anger. Later that night, I overheard them talking in the kitchen. "She'll quit soon," Dad said confidently. "She doesn't have it in her, never did." That was the moment something in me hardened forever. I wasn't just going back to the academy to survive. I was going back to win, to rise, to silence every laugh, every doubt, every insult. If I had to bleed for it, so be it. That night, staring at the ceiling of my old room, I whispered the same words I'd been whispering since I was a kid, only this time, I believed them with every bone in my body. One day, I'll prove them wrong. The day of my turning point began like any other, brutal, loud, exhausting. The sun wasn't even up when the whistle shrieked us out of bed. My muscles ached, my uniform clung to my sweat-soaked skin, and my brain screamed for sleep. We were lined up on the training field, rifles in hand, staring down an exercise that looked designed to break us, a full combat simulation with live-time strategy. The instructors barked orders, and we were split into two teams. I ended up on a squad led by a guy named Torres, a cocky recruit who'd never missed a chance to remind me I didn't belong. "Stay out of the way, Carter," he sneered as we loaded gear. "Try not to cry when the pressure hits." I clenched my jaw, biting back the urge to snap. Let him talk. I'd heard worse. The simulation began with chaos. Smoke bombs clouded the air, instructors shouting over loudspeakers, simulated gunfire echoing through the training grounds. My squad scattered, each recruit trying to prove themselves. Torres barked conflicting orders, leading us straight into an ambush. Half our squad was down within minutes. I crouched behind cover, heart racing, sweat dripping down my temple. The drill sergeant's voice rang out from somewhere above, "Adapt or fail. Carter, show me what you've got." Something inside me snapped into focus. Torres was panicking, yelling nonsense, completely lost. I scanned the field, the smoke, the positions, the movement of the enemy team, and suddenly, I saw it. A gap, a path no one else noticed. I grabbed two recruits who were still alive. "Follow me," I hissed. "Stay low, stay quiet." They hesitated, but Torres said, "Torres is wrong. Trust me." Something in my voice must have convinced them, because they nodded. We crawled through the smoke, slipping around the enemy's flank. My heart hammered in my chest, but my mind was clear, sharper than it had ever been. Step by step, we advanced until we had the enemy in sight. "On my mark," I whispered, "now." We surged forward, catching them completely off guard. Within minutes, the simulation ended. Our squad declared the winner. When the smoke cleared, I stood panting, mud streaked across my face, my uniform ripped at the sleeve. The drill sergeant strode over, his boots heavy against the dirt. He looked at Torres, then at me. Leadership isn't about shouting the loudest. It's about seeing what others can't. Carter, well done. The words slammed into me harder than any insult my father had ever thrown. Well done. For the first time, I didn't just survive training, I led. That night, recruits I barely knew slapped me on the back. Nice call today, Carter. One said. Even Torres avoided my eyes. I lay awake in my bunk, staring at the ceiling, my chest swelling with something I hadn't felt in years, pride. Not the fragile, fleeting kind, but real, solid pride. For once, I wasn't just trying to prove something, I was becoming it. From that day forward, things shifted, not instantly, not dramatically, but enough that I noticed. Recruits who once ignored me started seeking my advice. During drills, instructors called on me to demonstrate techniques. My mile times were no longer at the bottom of the chart, they were climbing steadily. But the biggest change wasn't how others saw me, it was how I saw myself. I wasn't Rose, the clumsy youngest Carter who couldn't follow orders. I was Rose Carter, the recruit who refused to quit, who earned respect not by shouting but by showing up, day after day, bleeding and sweating for a dream no one else believed in. Recognition came slowly, like sunrise creeping over the horizon. I remember one particular evening, after a grueling 10-mile march, my boots felt like lead, my shoulders ached under the weight of my pack, and every step was agony. But when we reached the finish line, the drill sergeant called my name. Carter, front and center. I stumbled forward, heart pounding. He handed me a small patch, earned only by those who completed the march without falling behind. Wear it with pride, you've proven you belong here. I stared at the patch in my hand, tears threatening to spill. This wasn't just fabric, it was proof I was more than the useless daughter my father had painted me to be. I wrote a letter home that night, not to Dad, I didn't waste ink on him anymore, but to Lily. I earned something today, not because of luck, but because I worked for it. I don't know if you'll ever understand, but I'm not the same Rose anymore. One day, you'll see it too. Her reply came weeks later, just one line, I believe in you, even if he doesn't. It wasn't much, but it was enough to keep me going. Recognition spread beyond the academy walls. During evaluations, my name started appearing near the top of the lists. Rumors floated that I might be fast-tracked for leadership roles. One evening, during a strategy drill, an instructor pulled me aside. You've got potential, Carter, the kind we don't see often. Keep pushing, you might just outrank recruits who started stronger than you. My throat tightened. Outrank me, the girl who'd been told her whole life she couldn't even follow simple orders. That night, lying on my bunk, I thought about my father, about the way he laughed at me during dinner, about how he told his buddies I'd never survive. And for the first time, I didn't feel crushed by those memories, I felt fueled by them. Every insult, every dismissal, it was kindling for the fire in my chest. Because the truth was clear now, I wasn't just surviving this academy, I was rising, and sooner or later, the world, including my father, would have no choice but to see it. Graduation from the academy was a few months away when I was called home for a mandatory family event, my cousin's wedding. I almost didn't go. Part of me wanted to stay in the barracks, shielded by the discipline and structure I'd grown to love, but something deeper urged me to face them. Walking back into my parents' house after almost a year away felt surreal. The walls were the same, but I wasn't. My uniform hugged my frame differently now. My stride was firmer, my eyes sharper. But to them, I was still the same old Rose. The rehearsal dinner was packed, relatives everywhere, chattering, laughing, clinking glasses. I tried to stay small, to blend into the crowd, but Dad wasn't going to let that happen. He spotted me across the room, and his voice boomed, "Well, look who's here, little Rosie. How's boot camp? They haven't kicked you out yet?" The room chuckled. My cheeks heated, but I kept my head high. It's not boot camp, Dad. It's advanced officer training, and I'm doing well. Advanced officer training? He laughed so hard he nearly spilled his drink. You hear that, folks? Rosie thinks she's going to be an officer. Can you imagine? She couldn't even march in a straight line when she was 10. The relatives laughed along. I scanned the room, Mom looking down at her plate, Jacob grinning smugly, Lily watching me with quiet eyes. Something in me snapped. I stepped forward, my voice steady but sharp. You've mocked me my entire life, Dad. Every dinner, every conversation, you've reminded me of everything I supposedly couldn't do. But here's the thing, you were wrong. I'm not your weak, useless daughter anymore. I've earned respect from people who actually matter, people who see more in me than you ever chose to. The room went silent. Dad's face darkened. Watch your tone, Rose. No, I said firmly. My hands trembled, but I didn't lower my gaze. I've spent my whole life watching my tone, shrinking myself so I wouldn't upset you. Not anymore. Gasps echoed. My father, Colonel Daniel Carter, the man who commanded entire units with a single look, was being challenged by the daughter he dismissed as a joke. His jaw clenched, his voice cold. You'll regret disrespecting me. I swallowed hard but stood my ground. I'll regret nothing except letting you convince me I wasn't capable. One day, Dad, you're going to see the truth, and when you do, I hope it burns. With that, I turned and walked out, leaving the whispers of stunned relatives behind me. That night, in the quiet of my old room, I shook with adrenaline and fear, but beneath the tremors was something stronger, liberation. For the first time, I hadn't just whispered that one day I'd prove him wrong. I'd spoken it out loud. Graduation day at the academy was crisp and clear, the kind of morning where the air itself felt electric. Rows of us stood in full dress uniform, polished boots gleaming, medals pinned to our chests. The families filled the stands, a sea of faces searching for their sons, daughters, siblings. Mine was there, Mom wringing her hands, Jacob lounging smugly, Lily watching intently, and Dad, arms crossed, jaw tight, eyes daring me to fail. The ceremony began with the commandant addressing the crowd, his booming voice echoing across the parade ground. Awards were handed out, names called, cheers erupting. My pulse pounded as I waited. Then came the moment. Candidate Carter, step forward. My knees nearly buckled, but I marched out, chin high, heart hammering. The general himself, a man whose presence demanded respect, stood waiting. He held out a folder, his voice steady, for exceptional perseverance, leadership under pressure, and unyielding discipline. We recognize Rose Carter with the rank of Major. A murmur rippled through the crowd. I froze. Major. My breath caught as the general removed his cap, straightened, and in front of hundreds of families, saluted me. Welcome, Major Carter. The world seemed to stop. I returned the salute, my hands steady though my heart thundered like a drum. My eyes flicked toward the stands, and that's when I saw it. My father's face. The man who mocked me, who laughed at me, who told his friends I wasn't worth a damn, was sitting frozen, eyes wide, jaw slack. The relatives beside him whispered in disbelief. Jacob looked stunned. Lily's lips curved into the faintest, proudest smile. And in that moment, all the years of pain, all the whispered promises in the dark, all the tears I'd shed, they crystallized into one shining truth. I had done it. I wasn't just his daughter. I wasn't his failure. I was Major Carter. The general's voice rang out again, formal and commanding. Ladies and gentlemen, salute Major Carter. The entire field rose, hands to brows. And there, in front of everyone, my father had no choice but to lift his hand, slow and reluctant, and salute me. It wasn't just respect, it was vindication. I stood taller than I ever had, the weight of every insult lifting from my shoulders. The same words that haunted me, she can't even follow orders, flipped on their head. Because now, even a general was following mine. When the ceremony ended, I walked off the parade ground still half-dazed. The metal glinted against my uniform, the new rank stitched proudly into my sleeve. Cadets slapped me on the back. Instructors nodded with rare smiles. But it wasn't the applause or the recognition that stuck with me. It was the look on my father's face, raw, stunned silence. The kind of silence that said louder than words, I was wrong. For years, I thought that's what I wanted most, his admission, his approval, his respect. But standing there, surrounded by a sea of salutes, I realized something that shocked me. I didn't need it anymore. The respect I had earned wasn't borrowed from him. It wasn't something he could give or take away. It was mine. Every sleepless night, every blistered foot, every tear I shed in silence had built it. And no one, not even my father, could erase that. Later that evening, my family tried to approach me. Mom's eyes shimmered with pride, though guilt lingered at the edges. Lily hugged me tight, whispering, "I always knew you had this in you." Jacob stayed quiet for once. No smirk, no jab. And Dad? He simply nodded. That was it. No apology, no grand speech, just a stiff nod that carried decades of unsaid words. I thought I'd feel anger or triumph in that moment, but what I felt instead was peace. Because I no longer needed him to tell me who I was. Walking back to my quarters that night, I sat on my bunk and let the silence sink in. The voices from my childhood still echoed, "You can't. You won't. You're not enough." But no, they didn't hurt. They fueled me. The truth is, sometimes the people closest to us, family, even parents, fail to see who we are. They project their fears, their frustrations, their disappointments onto us, and if we're not careful, we start believing them. But here's what I learned: you are not defined by the limits others place on you. You are not the sum of their doubts. You are what you choose to fight for, what you refuse to give up on, what you build with your own hands when everyone else expects you to crumble. I thought proving my father wrong would be my victory, but the real victory was proving myself right. So if you've ever been mocked, doubted, or dismissed, remember this: their laughter doesn't decide your destiny. Your persistence does. Because one day, the very people who said, "You can't," might just find themselves standing at attention, saluting you. And when that day comes, you'll know, just like I did, that you never needed their permission to rise.